All right, so guys, we're going to be talking about what our plan is for our draft picks next season. But let's get it teed up with a trade here. So, Scott, you got a 12-team Superflex PPR 1.75 for the tight end start 10. Are you giving Brandon Aiyuk and your projected late 25 first for James Cook? Go ahead, man.
Well, my first thought is Brandon Aiyuk is an asset that is going to go up in value and or demand at some point. He has a name. He's down right now. Injury's bad, but he's a chip that I don't want to throw in unless I have to. But I'm also giving up a first for a running back. And James Cook's been great, but can I replace what I'm buying? Whether that's a tight end in a 1.75, a receiver, a running back, whatever. Probably need a running back if I'm targeting James Cook, but can I get it cheaper? Do I have to use the Aiyuk chip right now, or can I wait till free agency? Can I wait to the offseason? Like, do I have to fire that along with the first just to get James Cook? Can I get Chase Brown cheaper? Can I get a running back? Can I get even Rashad White even cheaper? Like, I'm not going to get probably the same production, but can I get somebody cheaper and just bank on that guy giving me 13 points per game instead of the 18 points per game James Cook's been getting? If I do that, if so, I'll eat the 5 points, I'll save the assets, and I'll try to patchwork it together, especially if there's no deadline. We didn't put in there the context to this, but I have more flexibility. I just don't need to pay this, I don't think.
Shane, what are you doing here, man? It's a 12-team Superflex PPR with a tight end premium start 10, which doesn't include kicker and D. You going Aiyuk in a late first or James Cook? Title,
yeah, it's
baby.
It's week 13, right? So I'm done trying to find value nuts. Like I don't want Rashad White, who's going to give me 5 points less per game than James Cook. If I could get Chase Brown for just the first and not throw in Aiyuk, cool. Could I get Isaac Orendo for Brandon Aiyuk? I'd do that. Like Scott was saying, I'd prefer not to use both assets, but if I have no other choice, and there's a limited number of teams I can trade with, right? It's the bottom 5 teams, because team number 7 is stupid and he doesn't realize, or she doesn't realize, they're out of the playoffs. They have no chance. So they're not going to move their running backs, even though they should. I'm okay doing that. I'm a little less concerned about value hunting right now in week 13 than I would have been in week 1 or week 2. And it's certainly short-sighted. I won't even pretend that it's not, but I'm trying to win titles. That's what I want. I want titles, and James Cook gets me there a lot closer to that than Rashad White, just because that's the name we use.
All right, so Scott, Dynasty changes on a daily basis. Who knows what it's going to look like next season? But as we sit here today, looking at this season and thinking about next, how would you use your picks differently?
Well, 25 is going to be a hyped up class. I don't know how good of a class it's going to be, but it's going to be one that people pay more attention to. There's more limelight on some of the players. I think it's interesting that it's going to be happening in a class where running back's going to be the strength of the class at a time where running backs could not have had a better season. So it's going to be cool to see how that market merges together with the veteran market, which is going to have a lot of productive running backs that some leagues, they're going to be valued highly, right? Like the teams that rode the Joe Mixons this year are going to go, I'm not trading that guy. Other leagues, people are going to be desperate to trade him, but they're going to go, oh, I want a first for him in April. And we know that's not going to be a price. Now, it doesn't matter how good they were last year. Very few of the veteran running backs are going to have a viable, robust market in the offseason. So it's going to lead to a lot of people that had those guys going, I'm just going to run it back with them again. I don't have a choice. All I'm getting offered is 2 seconds for Derrick Henry. I'll just ride him again. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Worst case scenario, even if he's not performing what he did last year, someone may give me a second. So it's not like you're taking nothing. You're not going to go to 0 unless one of those guys suffers a catastrophic injury. So how am I going to use my first different? I think the interesting part about this year is going to be really pay attention to what type of equity are you getting for the first when you make the pick. And it's easy to go back and look at some of the hindsight picks on guys that hit this year and guys that didn't hit this year. And we're going to be no better at figuring out who those players are. I mean, you can go back to videos we did a year ago at the end of the 2023 season, and we're talking about some of the early values on rookies in 2024, and nobody had Brian Thomas Jr. ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. They weren't even in the same stratosphere, you know? Like, we never had that in the range of outcomes. Nobody had Ladd McConkey ahead of Xavier Worthy. Nobody had Bucky Irving as the RB1 in the class. Nobody had a lot of these outcomes, but it doesn't mean that if you drafted some of those players, you missed. What it did mean is you had different levels of what you could do for those players once you drafted them. I'll give an example. Like somebody like Keon Coleman, he's been decent. He's been injured, but he's been decent. He's not a bust, right? He's probably a good receiver. Has he ever felt like he's had a great window where you could just smash sell him for something better? His production has come when there's been other productive guys, and then they traded for Amari Cooper. It's like there's always something that was blocking the full buy-in of everybody to be like, this is the dude. You know what I mean? It took 2 games for people to go, Brian Thomas Jr. is the dude. And that's probably just some anchoring bias as to what those players were, how much people liked them, and that creates different types of windows and different types of markets. I'll give another example of, look at the difference between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, right? After they were drafted, it was Bryce Young's in a good situation. He went to 101. CJ Stroud, I don't know about the Texans. The market was down on CJ Stroud. Then at the end of year 1, CJ Stroud is the next elite quarterback in the NFL. Bryce Young's a bust. Then we go full circle to now. I think people are like, well, CJ Stroud was kind of a disappointment, even though we were always like, yeah, he's overvalued where he is. And
they're
Bryce
starting to merge. He's starting
Bryce
to
Young
look
is
a little
rising
bit better. Yeah.
Bryce Young is rising back up. But I think the lesson learned is CJ Stroud is getting a major pass for his second year because of how good his first year was. Whereas Bryce Young, people are a little more leery because of the way that he got there. So I think I'm going to really pay attention with using my first. I'm not going to be able to tell you if Ladd McConkey is going to be better than Xavier Worthy. Nobody thought that. Not a single person thought that. But what people did think is that Xavier Worthy, the asset, was going to be way better than Ladd McConkey, right? And there was a window early on where Xavier Worthy was, oh my God, he's the wide receiver 1 in the class. Remember week 1 where he had 2 touchdowns and they were using him in a creative way? And you're like,
now, yep.
Wait till the target share comes up. Wait till his usage improves. Wait till he learns how to play receiver, and then he gets all this stuff and all the actual receiver stuff. He's going to be incredible. But that only existed because of where he started, right? That only existed because of what he had at the beginning. It faded quickly. Long story short, I think trying to really hone in on the situational bets that you're making, how people feel about these players, because almost look at the ups and downs for Marvin Harrison and Malik Nabers and even Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. But because of what they were, they've kind of had a pretty fluid market for the entire season. But just understand that I don't think we're going to get rookies that just come in and are just incredible. They can't miss off the rip, which is going to create a lot of up and down, especially in a game where we're playing it week to week. What situations, what sentiment of players are you investing in? I don't want to make the pick unless I know that I'm getting into something where I'm going to have multiple angles to get out. If I'm just making the pick because there's nobody else there, there's probably something more creative I can do with it, whether that's buy into a veteran that nobody wants to buy into the offseason, combine the pick for something and get future capital, whatever it is, like deferring, having to decide and just go, well, there was nobody left to draft except for this guy. There's nobody left to take except for Jonathan Brooks. What a great value he was. Wouldn't you rather just kick that pick to 2026 even and just not had to decide, given how powerful a pick can be when all the shit hits the fan during the season? That's what I want to be smarter with. I don't want to burn picks just for the sake of chasing players. And it's easy to say today, very hard to do when you get into draft season.
Shane, when you heard the topic, what do you think? Dynasty is obviously very dynamic, very fluid, but how would you use your picks differently next season, do you think, as of today?
Oh, do I think? How do I think? I mean, I've been talking about this for about 3 years, how I'm going to start drafting players that other people like, even if I don't, especially in the second rounds, right? Where I go, for some reason, hey, this running back, I know his situation's going to be good and I know he's going to be good, but the rest of the market's kind of like, I don't know, as opposed to we bring up Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey, people loved Ladd McConkey. Right? He was everybody's little pet monkey last year. Like everybody wanted him. Like they just told you how great he was. And I wasn't buying into it. And it didn't matter if I bought into it. What I should have bought into was the fact that the market bought into him. So even if he didn't have as an excellent as a rookie season as he has had this year, even if he had just had a couple of spike weeks and I wanted to get out, I could have. I think, and this is kind of after the fact, but after I do draft players and there's a window to trade high on them, like Malik Nabers, you know what you could have gotten from Malik Nabers after week 1? After week 2, you could have gotten A.J. Brown in a first. Brian Thomas Jr., you could have gotten A.J. Brown plus. I think I'll be more cognizant of that too, understanding that players that have established themselves have a longer track record I can believe that track record over a player that has done it for 4 weeks. And this isn't to say in any way that Malik Nabers has had a bad rookie season, but he's definitely plateaued after the first, 2 weeks when it looked like he was, or 3 weeks or whatever it was, when it looked like he was going to put up 24 points a game as a rookie. But I do think I'll be more apt to use picks to trade for players. I'm tired of trying to guess who the players I think are going to be good. Scott talked about how, you don't want to be in a position where you're stuck making picks on players that you really don't know about, right? You lucked out if you did in some circumstances. You got Brian Thomas Jr. If you just got stuck with the 108, you couldn't move it. That's who you ended up with. If you ended up with the 203, you got stuck with Ladd McConkey, and you were happy with that. Now you got the 201. You're like, all right, I guess I'm taking Bo Nix, which looks like a genius move right now. But by the same token, the 106, you drafted Xavier Worthy, and now you look like you have egg all over your face. So I think I will be trying to move those picks. And I said this last year too, though, right? Like if you always made that bet, every year, I'm just going to trade the 104, for example, for A.J. Brown, for a player in that sphere. I'm probably going to come out building a team that's more than okay. It's going to probably be a powerhouse. I might not have the fun 22-year-old rookies, and that does suck, right? Because FOMO is a hell of a drug. But maybe if I can just look past that momentary joy for the long-term joy, I'd be better served.
Post week 2, I saw a Jamar Chase and a second for Malik Nabers. And Jamar Chase since week 2 is only averaging like 28 points per game. But Malik Nabers has averaged like 11 points per game. That's one of the deals that if you took advantage of the one started out slow, one started out with an unsustainable 45% target share through the first 2 weeks. I mean, you could also have got burned by that deal, but at the same time, like there's probably some meat on the bone in terms of, especially with rookies. I mean, Shane hit on some good ones, but man, every other pick around there, what if you just settled and drafted Blake Corum or Trey Benson? You're just like, when are they going to be usable? So I think that's going to make this class real interesting because there's going to be a lot of picks in the first 20 where you're going to go, the community is telling me the best player on the board is a running back. But we also know what defines a running back. People are not going to sit around for a year and wait for their favorite third round running back to get some starts because the guy ahead of them is like the gnat that you can't kill. It's like that big mosquito that's at the top of your ceiling and you can never get to. Like it's that's going to happen, I think, in a lot of situations going forward, because there's going to be some good veteran running backs that are not just going to get out of the way and let Travion Henderson take all their snaps. So there's going to be a lot of these picks where, how confident are you, Clay, that you can pick the running back that you're fine waiting 10 weeks until they have a meaningful role, but the market is going to stay robust the entire year for that running back. And I get it, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, Jonathan Brooks, they're not going to be on the same level as next year's running back class. But dude, there were people already giving up on those running backs after a month because it's like they're not even getting on the field. So you don't even get a read on how the team would use them or may want to use them because they're just not getting opportunity. But I could also sell you where at any moment, one of those guys could have been the starter for a month and people are like, holy hell, this guy's incredible. So you just don't know. So that's going to make me even more wary of 25 picks, especially if the market is just, oh, this is a can't miss running back. I know he's going to take over the backfield in this situation. How many of those happened this year, Shane? How many incumbent backfields got taken by the rookie? Can you even think of any?
Tampa Bay?
Bucky Irving.
Tampa Bay's the best example, and there's still another running back there. That's it.
Still is, yeah. That's it.
I mean, the Giants. That was the one. The Giants is probably the one.
No one had that on their check.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody had that on their bingo card either.